niche. How do you pronounce it? We're going to be talking today about why it is so important to pick a niche, why you have to pick a niche, how to pick a niche, and how to monetize it. So let's get started. So today is the day we get into all your niche questions. Do you pronounce? So the very first thing I'm going to ask you is to tell me where you're from if you're listening live, where you are from. Tell me right away in the comments where you are from and how you pronounce the word N-I-C-H-E. Do you pronounce it rhymes with quiche or do you pronounce it rhymes with itch? I was not going to say it. Come on. So tell me what you, and I mean, since we're on the topic of silliness, I'm going to wait for your comments to pop up, but I have to share with you, tits up, tits up.
It says here, tits up. It's beautiful.
Pronounced with a British accent.
This is Reina.
Oh my God, Reina, you are the best.
Said with a British accent.
Said with a British accent. And mine says 2 poodles and a fart. And if you have no idea what this means, you clearly didn't come to last week's live. So if you missed that, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it. It's the one on how to monetize even a tiny audience. So you definitely want to go watch it because now we have a whole bunch of in-jokes that you're going to miss out on if you weren't there. Now that that's out of the way. All right, let's get back into niching and why it's so important and so on and so forth. So I'm going to look out for your comments. Do you say niche or niche? Which camp are you in? Niche or niche? I feel like this is one of those, are you a cat person? Are you a dog person questions? Tell me in the comments how you say it. I personally say niche. I also live in a French speaking province. So, you know, all right. So I'm going to keep saying niche, but sometimes I'm going to switch to niche just to keep it interesting. Bear with me. The first question that I want to start with is what the bleep is a niche or niche and why is it even important? Does everybody need one? I would love to have your answers to that question in the comments right away. So hit me with your answers with what you think a niche actually is, because I looked up the definition. Most of us haven't really stopped to think about what it means, right? So a niche is typically an area of focus or specialization. And the reason that I get excited about picking a niche is because it allows you to talk directly and deeply to your ideal client. Now, the dictionary definition of niche is, again, that area of focus or specialization. But that still feels, I mean, if someone were to tell me that and I'm like, okay, pick your area of focus or specialization, that would feel kind of heavy to me. And I don't know if any of you have felt that heaviness when it comes to picking a niche. If this is you, just, pop in the comments and tell me, have you found it difficult? How, what has been your experience with picking a niche? Here's how I define it. Your niche is basically a reflection of how deeply you understand your ideal client's pain. That's as simple as that. How deeply do you understand your ideal client's pain? Now, notice I didn't say anything about demographics or income level or gender, as if what somebody has between their legs defines whether they're a good client or not. I mean, that's about that. I don't understand why people get so hung up on gender. And I think it's because we've all been given a lot of marketing advice from marketers, right? None of these things, their income level, their race, their gender, where they live, geographic location, none of that stuff is going to really speak to their pain. You see the difference there? I hope this is lighting some light bulbs up in your head. You have to understand their pain and their bliss, their vision, their pain and their vision for their life. Now, we work with a lot of clients who come to us because they've been struggling and they've been taught to niche using marketing metrics. Gender, income level, industry, race, geographic location, which is useful. I'm not saying this is not useful, but there's a time and place for it. And I will tell you something, it is going to be infinitely easier for you to market something that you're clear about. It is so hard to start the marketing machine first before you figure it out, before you're fully clear on what is this and who is it for? And that's not even the right order to go in. So the correct order, in my opinion, is first you have to get clear on the who, which will help you then more clearly define the what, right? If you don't know who it is you're working with, then it becomes really difficult to be clear on exactly what your offer needs to be. If you don't know who the person is and exactly what their pain is, so again, this goes back to that question of pain, then your offer, your program, your consulting service, your coaching, how is it supposed to speak directly to that? How do you design a program that's going to give them results? What do those results even look like for that person, right? If you don't have these questions answered up front, designing your program becomes infinitely harder. Now you're doing those silly things that, you've been told, I don't know how many of you have gone through this experience where you've been told, go in Facebook groups and ask people what they struggle with. People don't always know what their problem is. And if you don't know, then you're going to be stuck in reaction to your client's own confusion. You're going to get sucked into their confusion. Their own ignorance, you're going to get sucked into their ignorance. If you don't make the effort to really understand what it is you do and who you do it for, then you're going to be stuck in reaction to whatever is there and whoever happens to be responding to your questions that particular day. Does that make sense? So the correct order that I believe is first you get clear on who it is, and I will give you tips on exactly how that works. It's always going to be, not tits. I said tips. Pat and his cop. Oh my God. No tits. You're in charge of your own tits. I'm in charge of the tips. I will teach you how to. We talked a little bit about this, tits notwithstanding. We talked a little bit about this. Remember, I used this guy in the How to Monetize Your Audience, and we talked about the continuum. We're going to talk about it a little bit more today. But basically, yeah, I know I should have thrown it this way. But anyway, but basically, the whole idea is that if you're like, but wait, how am I supposed to know who if I don't know what? Yes, you will know the what. You have your general idea of what your expertise is. So you're going to know what your expertise is. And then the who is almost always going to be a version of you at a different point on the continuum than you are today. Because you have gone through that transformation, you are on a different point on the continuum. Your client is further behind you, closer to the hell, closer to the pain, closer to the angst, that feeling of depression or whatever it is. And you are closer to nirvana. You're closer to the other end. You're closer to the place where you're evolving towards, if you think about it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're closer to survival and you're closer to self-actualization. But your ideal client is always going to be a version of you. So that's part of how we help our clients. And we have a very, very deep exercise that we guide every single one of our clients through to help them get clear on that who, because knowing who your ideal client is, I don't know how you would do any of the other pieces if you didn't first have that dialed in. Okay. So the correct order is first get clear on the who. That will help you define the what goes in your program, what's going to produce results. And then and only then you own the privilege to tell them why it's time to buy. Does that make sense? So when you don't have your ideal clients defined, what ends up happening is you come across as vague. You end up talking about concepts, abstract principles. Let me give you an example. So if you were to take productivity and processes, for example, if that was your topic, let's say you're a productivity coach, right? You're going to be talking about, hey, wouldn't you like to be more productive? Wouldn't you like to get more done? Wouldn't you like to? You're talking about these vague terms that make you sound like everybody else in that space. On the other hand, when you know your client, you're going to be talking about the fact that their spouse feels like a single parent because she never sees him. She never sees them because they're always working or they're thinking about work. Now, when they have that experience, when they see that look in their spouse's eyes, when they see that look, when they go to that, where they're sitting at the dining table and they pick up their phone and they're like, oh God, I have to go. That messaging, your messaging is going to be like, it's going to create that little reminder for them. And they're going to be like, oh my God, she was talking about me. Does that make sense? That's the difference between talking about a principle like productivity or getting more done or even overwhelm. What does that even mean? If you don't define it and make it visceral where somebody can identify it in their body or in their life where they're sitting and having the experience and they're like, oh, this is that thing that the video talked about or the Facebook post talked about. If they're not having that experience where you've put it you've defined it so clearly that they can identify it when they experience it in their real life, then you're not clear enough. I'm going to tell you right now. And if you're out there marketing, you might as well just set fire to that money because it's going to be very painful to try and get ROI on those dollars. Does that make sense? And just a little tweak that I find useful, and this might just be me, but I'm going to offer it in case it resonates for some of you. Energetically, I find it much easier to feel a connection when I'm thinking of an ideal client rather than a niche, right? Like a niche feels kind of vague. It's like I'm talking to many people, and it's hard to be personal when I'm talking to the masses, and it's not clearly defined for me. So I prefer to think of an ideal client. I prefer to think in specifics, and that's one of the things that we help our clients do. Now, let's go to a question that someone had asked in the group. Can your niche be too narrow? And we've had so many clients struggle with this idea. It's like, oh, but I don't want to exclude people. How many of you struggle with this? So you're like, oh, but I want to help everybody. I want to have a really big impact. What if I define my niche and I only work with moms who are in a particular demographic or whatever the deal is, right? Here's the deal. First of all, I want you to ask yourself, what is the energy? What is the fear behind this question? Is it that you won't make enough money? Is it that you won't help enough people? What is the underlying emotion? Because it's going to color the way that you parse any of the information that you receive when you ask the question. Now, typically, the reason that this whole question of niche, too narrow, too big, etc., is again, it's a marketing question. A lot of marketers are like, if you want to be running ads, for example, this is the thing. Like if you run Facebook ads, you want to be in a position where somewhere in the vicinity of 800,000 to 1 million plus people exist who could potentially be your client, right? So you want to have a wide enough pool that you can get ads to them and, get a reasonable return on your investment from ads. So again, it's a marketing question. But here's something that nobody tells you. I believe that you can start with an extremely narrow niche and you can grow the niche, because 9 times out of 10, if the niche is very narrow, it's because people have not clearly defined or articulated that pain, and you're helping them do that, which by itself is a service, right? So it's kind of like with rare diseases or rare conditions or rare situations. Obviously, there's a limit to how niche you can go here, but typically when people have situations that feel like they're kind of they're outliers, there are often a whole bunch of people who will have similar experiences, but because everybody thinks that it just happened to them or that they're the only person struggling with it, nobody talks about it. And so it feels extremely uncommon. So what I find is that typically when you get very good at defining people's pain, a lot of people, more than you expect, will start self-selecting in and thinking, oh my God, she's talking about me. And then as you help those people, more they themselves and then people in their circles, in their network, in their sphere of influence will become more cognizant of the fact that this kind of help exists. Another problem with niches being too narrow is typically that people don't know that help exists for their particular flavor of pain. So I'm almost never worried about a niche being too narrow. Typically, I find clients struggle, especially when it comes to getting the word out. I find clients struggle the most when they're like, I want to help all the people. And then again, what we do is we get into what is your subconscious underpinning to that impulse to help all the people. Obviously, we want to do the maximum amount of good. Everybody does. Everybody wants to leave the largest possible legacy. Everybody wants to help the most amount of people. That's a given. But you can do that with your free front-end messaging. You don't have to turn into a nonprofit business-wise. Okay. And a lot of people run nonprofits even though they're technically trying to run a for-profit. Does that make sense? So typically when you're trying to help all the people for pay, that's not going to work so well. You have to get very, very clear. And again, it talks about the continuum, and we'll get into that. You have to get really clear where on the continuum your ideal client is. When Apple, I'll give you a good example. It's not the coaching industry, but it's a pretty common example. It's a well-known example, I should say. When Apple started, they were a very weird niche product, right? When the personal computers were just coming out. And they decided to focus on their very narrow, very specific ideal client. and get that ideal client so hooked that those people became ambassadors. And you know what kind of brand it is today. Today, everybody has at least heard of it, right? So that's the deal. So niches will grow as there is momentum that is built with the transformations you create. Niches will expand. So tell me if you've had a big aha, especially if you've struggled. Is there anybody here who has struggled with being like, oh, my niche is too narrow, I don't know what I'm going to do? Hopefully this kind of sets your mind at ease. A huge piece of advice that I would give you is, again, to examine what is the emotional underpinning of the question for you. Is it, I want to make more money, I'm not sure I'll be able to monetize this? Is that where that's coming from? Is that because you feel like you're not, is it scarcity, you're not going to be able to help enough people? Because if you have a good structure for how your messaging works, then you can help everybody that is interested in your kind of help for free with your front end messaging. You can literally create huge, I'm doing it right now, so I know it can be done. This is free. Many of you are not my client yet, right? You can create huge transformation, actual transformation in your free front end messaging that will actually make those clients more ready to become your clients, and you will broaden your niche. That's what I believe can be done with niches. So I'm not too worried about niches being too narrow. Does that make sense? All right, let's move on to the next point. So I thought it would be really interesting for me to explain to you how we define our own ideal clients. Okay, because if you look at our client list, and I was kind of looking through it and scrolling our Facebook group, our private Facebook group earlier, and there are people there at so many different industries, so many different levels. Like we have clients who have run multi-million-dollar companies and then had, they got stalled in their growth, and that their growth began to erode, and they're overwhelmed and they're just working, burning out. They've got the money, but they don't have the freedom that they thought the money was going to buy. So we have clients at that end of the spectrum. And then we also have clients who, have never coached officially before, but have been through their own transformation, deeply life transforming kind of experiences that they've brought to the table, where they're like, I'm ready to processize this, I'm ready to systematize this, and I'm ready to put this out in the world so that I can help people like me. So we have clients on, and everybody in between. We have course creators who've gone and created your typical $997 course and, $47 tripwire and all this other jazz. And they have been burning out. They have been marketing their asses off. And then they've realized, oh my God, I don't actually love marketing. I love coaching, and I'm just not getting enough time to do the coaching because I'm burning out doing the marketing. So we have clients across the spectrum. And if I ask myself who our ideal clients are and when they're actually ready, the answer has nothing to do, surprise, surprise, the answer has nothing to do with their level of education, their level of income, their gender. We work with people of every gender. Their race, their geography. We work with people across the world. None of these things matter. It's not even like how many years have they been coaching. It's not even that. The people that we work with are people in many ways who are a reflection of me. They're at a certain point in my own journey where they have made a decision, and they have made a decision that it is time for them to bring their brilliance out into the world. And they're not pussyfooting, they're not trial and erroring, they're done with that. They have either tried it a bunch of times and gotten burnt, or they're like, you know what, I'm ready to actually do this. I've taken how many ever months, years, decades that it's taken me to give myself permission to actually go out and own this. But the people that I work with are people who are ready to own their gifts. And the reason that they're going to do it, and the reason that we're so good at helping them do this, is because the way that we know to help people own their gifts is to make peace with themselves. So to build self-acceptance, to build self-trust. This is why we work with a mindset team that uses hypnotherapy with different modalities, including hypnotherapy, with every one of our clients one-on-one, because we know that you're bringing in inhibitors from your past. You're bringing in patterns where you were either hurt or you were the one hurting someone, and you're terrified to repeat that pattern. A big pattern that we see with our clients is help equals harm. Like, this is a really big pattern that we see where people have the brakes on their businesses and on themselves, getting out there and saying what they do and doing it with the people that they most want to help, because at some point in their past, they were probably harmed by somebody that was meant to help them. And oftentimes, many times, right? Sometimes it's a parent, it was an authority figure. Sometimes it's coaches that they've hired in the past and had negative experiences with. And because they haven't made peace with that experience yet, there's a whole bunch of unprocessed emotion that belongs in the past. Because they didn't process it, they're still carrying it. Because they're carrying it, they're like, I don't ever want to grow up to be the person that I despise or that that hurt me. I don't ever want to be that person to somebody else. And so they hit a wall. No matter how much they try to build, no matter how many PDFs or worksheets or funnels or any of these things that they try to actually get out into the world, it never feels right. I have worked with clients who literally will do all the work. They will pull all-nighters. They will work weeks on end. They will put in the elbow grease. And right when it starts to get easy, when it actually starts to take off, they will just disconnect. It's like they'll pull a plug and all the energy that they have for it will drain away. And the reason for that is because they haven't processed the inhibitor that gets in their way and just slams them against a wall when they get to that point. So different clients bring in different inhibitors, and our job as a team is to find out what's your inhibitor, what's your core pattern that's being the brakes on your operation. And when we help you release that, and at the same time, we're helping you figure out, okay, who exactly is your ideal client? How is your inhibitor showing up in them? Think about the depth of the messaging that's going to create, right? You're not talking about overwhelm or productivity or divorce rates or anything vague or superficial like that. You're now talking about deep patterns that your ideal client has probably never thought about this way before. And that's what builds trust immediately. And you don't need all of the touch points and all of the years of following you and you don't need all of that. Because what I know about our clients is they've been questing. They've been looking, their readiness has been building, they have been working up to this decision. And typically when they make the decision, that's usually when we'll show up on their radar. I believe in manifestation, so I'll put that on the table. But when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So this is how I define our ideal clients, is they have made that commitment to owning their life's work by making peace with themselves. So they're ready to do that deep spiritual work that goes into learning, like releasing their past and then owning their gift.
Just be careful with the equipment. You're not. Are you going to talk about this, man? just wanted to.
This is
I just wanted to say hi.
Pat's micromanaging me. It's like, don't touch the mic. I'm like, I'll touch my mic if I want to. Who's gonna stop me? All right. So really quick, actually, let's do this exercise right now. I'm gonna ask Pat to put it up on the screen. That's why he walked over here to make me. Live producers, I tell you. Okay, how are you your own ideal client? Tell me in the comments. No, but seriously, like all joking aside, this is a really good question. How are you your own ideal client? Because the more you understand the answer to that, the more you're going to understand, the more you're going to be able to communicate directly and deeply and meaningfully with your client's pain. Ultimately, more than anything, what we all seek is healing for ourselves. And the way that we know to heal ourselves best is that we teach. We teach what we most want to master. We want to create that healing in somebody else so that we can see it. We can experience it at this whole other level, right? Because sometimes when it's happening inside you, you're like, am I healing? Am I not healing? I'm not even sure. But if you're taking it outside you, it helps you understand the process better when you do it with somebody else. It helps you understand what that healing feels like. You can actually experience the shift in your client. That's like the most satisfying medicine in the world, right? When you experience your client shifting the way that you did, and you get to relive that shift with somebody else experiencing it, that makes it feeds you, it nourishes you, it helps you understand the work better, it gives you more energy to do more of that work with a wider variety of clients, because now that you understand the process better, again, your niche is growing, because the more you understand your own process and your own medicine, the more you're able to apply it to a wider variety of people. So does that help understand why no niche can be too narrow? Narrow is good. Obviously, if you're doing it narrow artificially, where you're like, okay, I've made it really, really narrow and I've like checked all the boxes, and you're doing it from that place where you don't have this deep resonant click, and that person doesn't immediately make you think, wow, that's me. That person is me. If you're doing it from that place and it's not, you don't have that click, then it's not the right narrow. It might be narrow, it just might not be the right narrow. Does that make sense? So that resonant click has to be there. So that's that. So I would love to hear from you. How are you your own ideal client? How do you see your ideal client in your own journey? And at what point, how clear are you? And this is another piece. How clear are you where on that continuum they are? When on that continuum did you yourself personally become ready for transformation? The more you know the answer to that question, the more your messaging is you're going to be able to call out the people, because you might have a lot of different types of people that you can work with, because that continuum is a long one, right? I have been many people in my own journey. Let's put it that way. I have been many people in my own journey. So, but there were times on that continuum where if I had made an offer to myself, right? If I, knowing what I know now about myself, had made an offer to me, I'd have been like, are you fucking out of your mind, woman? There is no way I would ever invest that much, do this kind of work, believe that this is possible, think that this is available to me. I would just not be in that place, even though I'm me, right? We all have versions of our clients where we're like, I know I can help that person, but that person is not ready to receive yet. So you have to think about, where in your own journey did you become ready to receive? And if you don't know how to do this, then that's when it's time to reach out to us and let us help you, because this is what we help our clients do. This is what we help our clients dial that in to such a science where it's so easy to then message to the people who are in that place where they're like, yes, I've been waiting for you. You become an answer to their prayer. They're literally, I've had this happen to me many times. Many of our clients have experienced it too. They will be crying with relief, with joy as they hand over credit card details on the phone. Just that's how joyful and aligned it can be, and it should be. Okay. So I'd be curious. I'm going to scroll back up because I can't always see comments. There's a bit of a delay. So I'm going to keep talking. So let's get into the common mistakes that I see. So common niche mistakes. Yeah, don't want to be making these. Numero uno, choosing a niche based on money. So I recently spoke to somebody who was working with another coach. And again, not to disparage anybody's process, but the advice that he had been given was, work with established entrepreneurs who are making, $500,000 to $1 million. And those will be the perfect people. Why? Because they have money. That was the reason. Like literally, that was the reason. Nothing wrong with that. Not untrue necessarily. Although I will tell you something. There are lots of people who are between $500,000 and $1 million who are making money but have no actual extra money because of the way that their businesses are managed and how they run things, etc. So just so you know, just because somebody has money on paper doesn't mean they actually have liquid cash. And just because they have liquid cash also doesn't actually mean they will give themselves permission to get help. Just putting that on the table. But anyway, this client that I spoke to had been given this advice, and he was like, it makes sense on paper, but I am not at that level. I'm not at that level. And if I'm targeting people based on that metric, then I feel like I have to have surpassed that specific metric. Does that make sense? And if you don't, and if you haven't, then you're going to feel like a fraud. And part of the reason is you kind of are. You are an imposter. You haven't lived that life. You cannot coach it with integrity. You can't Sherpa somebody. You can't take somebody a place that you haven't been. That would not be ethical. And that will put you in a position where you're going to feel out of alignment with who you are, which is exactly what was happening with this client that I spoke to, right? Like he was really struggling. He was like, I have no energy to put this out. Like I have all the writing done. I have all the stuff built, but I just can't put myself out there because I don't want to be confronted with being called out on it, right? So what we shifted in that was what I ask them some questions, and this is exactly what we do in our program, because we work with every client. We have videos that you're going to be watching that are thought exercises where I ask you a series of very deep, very specific questions. You write out all of your answers, and this is going to take you deeper than you've ever been before. So you're going to write out all your answers in a Google Doc and then send it to us on Help Desk. And then my team and I, so I actually did this myself with my team, we're going to go through your answers and we're going to be like, this piece needs to be developed more. This is not a very clear answer. There's some energy around this. And we're going to figure out, okay, where is your energy still blocked by some experience that you possibly had in your past that you're still carrying with you, some trauma that you haven't released yet that is blocking you from saying what you actually mean. You're not clear about certain types of pain, seem very kind of vague, or certain types of pain are overly developed. All of those things have to be examined. Sometimes clients have they have a great time with pain because they understand their pain. They're very attached to their pain. They often attract clients that are very attached to their pain because they haven't expanded their bliss. They are not clear about where they actually want to go. They're not clear about what their vision actually is. They're not clear about what success and results look and feel like. And so they typically will attract clients who have the exact same problem. If you don't know what you're working towards and you're not even you don't have a lot of hope or possibility or energy invested in getting somewhere else, it's going to be very difficult for you to put down money to get there. Does that make sense? If you don't believe that Europe exists, you're not going to buy a plane ticket to get there. That's part of the problem that I see with a lot of clients. So what we ended up doing with this particular client is I asked him a series of very specific questions, and I'm listening, and we read people's energy. So part of this is also energetic. So I'm listening, we're reading their energy. And in this particular case, his energy lit up when he talked about coming out. And so we were like, oh, what ended up happening is he doesn't work with people on their productivity or marketing or those sorts of things. He helps people come out in their messaging. And then when we had that figured out, he was able to look back and be like, oh my God, I've been doing this my whole life. And he could see it. It's always like that. It's always hiding in plain sight. It's right in front of your nose. And you just have never thought to do that because you're so busy doing the shoulds, the should dance where you're like, I should do this, I should do that. And it all feels really heavy and unaligned. So the first thing is, don't choose a niche because they look good on paper, because I can guarantee you that if you're not deeply connected to them, they're not going to buy anyway. Doesn't matter whether they have the money or not. They're not going to spend it with you. Does that make sense? So hopefully that speaks to that. Tell me if you have any questions or what your biggest aha is so far. And if you're watching the replay, give me a big old hashtag replay. I should have said that at the beginning. I totally forgot. It's on the screen because Pat has my back. And a cup that says tits up. Okay, moving on. Choosing a niche that makes you... Number 2, choosing a niche that makes you feel like an imposter. Well, fuck, I just told you about that one. Fuck. I'm not following the plan. I'm not a plan follower. Can you tell? I'm just not a plan follower. Okay, so I told you about moving on. Being unclear. Being unclear on the point of readiness. So we talked about this. It's back. I feel like I should have this. Just so lame, and it's covered in cat hair, which is gross. Okay, so the continuum. Let's see if I can get the side right. Is this the future or is that the past? This is the past? That's the past. Got it. Streets are inverted. It's kind of confusing. Anyhow. So this is the pain. This is the bliss. This is the past that your clients are trying to escape from. This is the future that they're working towards. This is probably you. This is probably them. Now, you have to figure out where on the continuum, most people don't know this and don't know how to do this, and we have a whole process for this. Most people are not clear where on the continuum they personally gave themselves permission to make the leap, to make the decision, to make a commitment to getting to bliss. Okay, if you don't know how and when and why you gave yourself permission, it's going to be real hard for you to coach somebody or even identify the people who are at that point of readiness. So the problem with that is that you're going to end up talking to people who are all the way over here. People who are all the way over here are so mired in survival mode, are so attached often to their pain. Their whole identity is built around their pain. So it becomes very difficult for them to release it because it is everything that they know. They literally would not know, who am I without my pain? They would not know, right? They're too far back. So you have to figure out where in the continuum they are actually ready to receive your medicine. And when you know what that looks like, you can start to describe it. That's when your messaging is going to become so freaking compelling. It is going to create so much excitement for the person who's in that place, who's like, they're ready and they're like, oh God, give me a sign, like universe, send me someone, like do something to help me. I am so ready for a change. And then your Facebook post, your LinkedIn post, your ad, whatever it is, your video, whichever method, like our messaging methodology works across platforms, across whatever medium you want to use. I do it in video, I do it in written posts. It works in every way, shape, or form. They're going to receive that, and it's going to feel like a freaking sign from the universe, because it is. You were built for them and they were built for you. And that is just your clarity finally meeting theirs. Does that make sense? So if you're unclear about the point on the continuum where your client is ready to make that change, ready to commit. So it's not so much about the monetary investment, although that will obviously be part of it. It is so much about the commitment. Because whether they have money or not, if they're not committed to the change, sound of crickets. It's not going to happen. All right, you're going to get 2 poodles and a fart. So, okay. 2 poodles and a fart. The end. That's what I have for you. Okay, let's take some questions. Now, I don't see shit. I do not. I have my phone. I probably left the bathroom. That's right. And I'm touching my mic.
That's what happens.
This is what happens.
You go around.
All right.
Don't follow with your phone.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know where my phone is.
Okay, what's it?
You took it away.
No, don't.
I feel like you did.
Don't.
You were like, get off Slack and focus on your life.
Don't. We're gonna have
Pat's fault.
We're gonna have to mute
No, that's
this.
the old one.
Oh yeah, that's the old one. 1 second. Where's today's live?
I don't know. It's not there.
Oh, here. It's
refresh.
because you're in discussions. Okay, you could talk about something.
So like, I should talk about something? I feel like you should talk about something. Pressure's on you.
I'm talking about something. I'm talking about where your phone is.
There it is. There it is. Okay, I see it.
Here. No, but you have to go. I have to actually.
I should put one of those chips on it.
I have to go in it. Oh my God. What are you doing? Here, if you want to follow the.
Look at your hair.
I know.
I'm just saying that to
look,
follow you.
Here. You have to look at the comments there. Jesus.
Okay.
I'm trying to help you.
He's trying to help me. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, he did actually help me, because now I can see comments. I can see comments. Okay, cool. Talk amongst yourself. I know. Like, get a room. All right. So does anybody have questions? So Jacob says, so sweet. He says, I'm taking notes here, but I realize I've always been fine leaving my comfort zone, and I see that's where people get stuck. I guess I'm ready to jump when I'm too miserable where I am, or just kind of complaining all the time. So Jacob, if that's your pattern, then your clients are going to be the people who are going to come. Here's what you need to know, Jacob, is your clients are going to come to you when they're in that position of they're sick and tired of the tape in their head, and they're sick and tired of that voice, but they don't have a voice that can give them permission. You are the manifestation. You are basically, and we've talked about this before, you are a figment of their subconscious, and they're coming to you, Jacob, in order for you to give them the permission that they seek to give themselves. So you have to help them identify the fact that they don't take action unless they're in a freaking ditch, right? And the problem with that, Jacob, as you hopefully have not experienced, but a lot of people who don't give themselves that permission will experience, is that if you don't fix it when it's early days, it'll typically become really bad, so bad that you can no longer ignore it. Now you have the choice to ignore it, but at some point you will no longer have the choice to ignore it, because you will become bankrupt, you will, get cancer, you will have some kind of giant life situation that, when you get cancer, whatever you were busy with before pales in comparison. You cancel every friggin' thing, and you go keep your doctor's appointments, and you take your treatments, and you lie in bed, because that's what you need to do to heal, because it is life and death. Some people will not give themselves permission to make change until they're at that moment of life and death. If you put this epiphany in your front end messaging, Jacob, they're going to see themselves and they're going to be like, oh my God, am I going to be that guy that has to wait until I'm on my deathbed? Am I going to be that guy that has to wait until someone dies, literally, myself or someone I love? Am I going to be that guy that waits for the company to go belly up before I seek help? Or am I going to be somebody who's proactive and takes these steps when I have a choice to make? That's how you're going to put it into your front end messaging. Pat has a question. Oh, Anthony Thompson has a question. Yes. It's a real question, even if it's your question. Okay, I'm looking here. How do you become in a saturated niche to stand out in your content product? This whole live, Anthony, I don't know if you're joining us late, is an answer to that question. I mean, ask me how I know. Like, I'm in a super business coaching is probably the most saturated niche on the planet. Okay, how do I stand out in a saturated niche? I get real crystal clear on exactly who I am, what I'm about, who specifically I am here to help. And I've talked about that in detail, so I'm not going to go over that again. And where on the continuum they need to be in order to be ready to work with us. Okay, moving on. I suspect you may have just joined us late, so you didn't hear me talk about all of that, but it's all in this video, so you can just come back and watch the replay. Okay. So Satya says, I want to say that this literally happened to me. Cancer forcing me to finally make a career change I knew I needed to do for a decade. I'm telling you, lots of people don't give themselves permission until they get to a point where they literally have no choice. And then they do it. The same thing that they could have done, minus the heartache, minus the stress, minus the financial outlay, minus whatever it is that they had to like give up or let go of or whatever in order to make that situation work. So Jennifer says, my niche is not saturated. Stepmama advocate and blended family coach. And I think that scares me. Good, Jennifer, because if it is your life's work, then there is always going to be that fear. Because when it is your life's work, when it is your legacy, then you're always going to have that energy around, oh my God, this is the thing that actually matters. So the stakes will feel exceptionally high, which is again why when we work with clients, we also do that deep mindset work. Because if you're not at peace with yourself, if you don't have a process for conditioning, and I mean this really as conditioning, it's like a practice. It's over and over and over and repetitive, because your subconscious is like a small child. Small children learn by repetition. If you don't have a process that you can rinse and repeat and use on command to condition self-trust and self-acceptance, then here's what I believe. The more that I work on my own self-acceptance, the more I find that I am accepted by you collectively. Why? Because you're mirroring what I feel about myself. Anything that doesn't mirror that usually just doesn't show up on my radar. I don't notice it. It doesn't bother me. It just kind of fades away. When something does show up and ping me, I'm like, oh, cool. I have something to work on. And I have a process to work on it so I can release it. And therefore, this authenticity that everybody seems to be drawn to, that's what that is. It's me being at peace with who I am and what I'm about. And then I have permission to just put it out there and, lick my mic and drop shit and say, really, I won't drop the mic. But I'm just saying, like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be polished. I can do it my way and it still works. So, oh, yes. Biotem. Did I say it right? Did I say it right? Did I say it right? I hope I did. Okay. How do I clarify that point of readiness for my target market? So this is what our clients pay us to figure out. So we have a process that we do with our clients, our paying clients, to help them understand exactly what that looks like. So if you want to know how to do that, come work with us. It's a great question, but I'm not going to answer it. I mean, people pay us mucho dinero to answer that question. I've given you, and you know what, to be fair, if you rewind this video, I have given you many cues. I have given you many questions that you can ask yourself. We have many more that deepen this process, but that's our magic and that is our medicine. And it is available at a premium for people who are ready to go all the way with us. and the rest of us, I mean, you know what? This is going to take you much further than a lot of the, $2,000 and $3,000 marketing programs out there. This one video will give you more value if you actually sit, rewind it, write out the answers to the questions that I ask. You will have more clarity from this 130 or 45-minute video than most of the 40 video programs out there that you've paid, a few $1,000s for. Okay. So Deborah says, it took me 10 years to get to where I am after my wake up moment, and now I can help women achieve that in 3 months. So Deborah, again, this is about you defining that. First of all, getting crystal clear on what that wake up moment looked like for you, all of the thought processes that led up to that moment, all of the reasons why you didn't give yourself permission to do that, and then, helping your clients see in an authentic way that it is actually possible for them to do in 3 months what took you 10 years to do. So part of that is also define it. And this is what I like to talk about. Again, showing, not telling, demonstrating how that will work. And most people don't know how to do that effectively. They talk about modules, they talk about deliverables, they talk about process, but they don't demonstrate effectively how people are going to get their results. So I see it. I'm a female leader in a male-dominated industry. My thoughts were to become a feminine leadership coach, mentor, but I want to help those through the overwhelm of being a new leader. This video makes me realize that I have 2 separate things on the go. Slow clap. Yay, I love that. So Leslie can already see that she hadn't gotten clear enough to separate and nuance exactly who she works with. So I love that. So please go and rewatch this, Leslie, and you're going to hear more things the second time around than you did the first time. And that's going to help you further clarify this. Christina says, client niche is so much about mindset. It's crazy. Christina's one of our clients. It's crazy. And I didn't get to it until you started asking me so many questions about how I view things. Sorry. Okay. So Jennifer Rogers replying to Deborah says, so many women just don't see a way. And that's why it takes so long. That is so true. Tanisha says, it's already taken me further, your free videos and this, and it only makes me want to work with you more. Yay, which is also making me more fully understand and trust the premium and free 2 ways to work with me model. Exactly. So one of the things that, again, we've talked about this in the past is people get really hung up on, I don't want to charge people thousands and thousands of dollars and be in the premium space because I want to work with everyone and I want to help people and I don't want to just sit on this pot of gold and guard it and, do it for money because that makes me feel icky. And I'm saying, and again, and I understand this because this is something that I had to overcome in my own consciousness. We're here to help everyone for free. We're doing it right now. But for the people who really who want to go all the way and who want to collapse time and do it in a short time frame and are ready for it, ready to really receive and heal, then we have the premium thing. It's not for everybody. It doesn't have to be for everybody. This is for everybody. And that way we're serving everyone that we were designed to serve, which is not everyone, but it is people in our space. There are going to be some people who are not ready for us yet. And that's who we serve at this moment in this particular way. And the people who are ready, we're able to collapse time. We're able to heal decades worth of trauma. We're able to help them give themselves permission they have never been able to give themselves before. And they at the same time build out their businesses in a very simplified, easy to implement way that allows you to have actual freedom and cash flow both at the same time. Okay. Says, I have had multiple major breakthroughs from suffering over the last 15 years. Yeah, suffering's a pretty good teacher. I struggle with which one to teach or speak to. I have often gotten asked to help with problems I've solved super long ago, but don't feel inspired helping with those problems as it feels less important to me now. So Satya, what I'm hearing you say is, again, you've got all these different threads, all these things that people are interested in when it comes to your work. You are never going to be able to build a successful business around a conversation that feels passé to you. So I'm going to give you permission to just let that go. Okay. So if they want help with that, that's awesome. And I've gone through this. Again, I can lead by example here because I have actually lived this. When I first got started online, I had a do-it-yourself PR program. So how to do your own PR, public relations, and get booked in the media and use that to grow your business. Successful. Yes, it was successful, actually. We hit 6 figures in the first 5 months and we grew from there. And what happened with that business is that I felt like my purpose expanded, and I got really frustrated because I was like, I'm very, very good at this. I'm known for it. We've had insane client results, but I'm kind of bored with this conversation and I don't really want to have it anymore. And I don't want to keep saying this. I'm bored and I'm frustrated. And I was like, well, shit, I created this. And at first I was like, oh my God, I did something wrong. But what I realized is, no, I did something right. I transcended what my history had taken me to. And now I was opening up to something much deeper and much bigger. So there were two things that happened in that space. One was that I realized that I wanted something more. And two, I started to see the limitations of what my method created. And that was very scary and very confronting because I realized that 96% of the clients that we worked with who did the work got results. They got big press, like local, national, international media, their own column in Inc., their own column in Forbes, all of these things. They got the results, but not everybody got business growth from it. And I had to confront, this was me confronting the limitations of my own methodology, where I was like, well, if I can get them results, but the results are some surface level bullshit, then am I a fraud? Like, did I just help equals harm, right? That whole pattern. Did I just harm people that I meant to help? And I'm very binary. I can sell anything to anybody that I fully believe in, and I absolutely can't sell it if I don't believe in it. So like I have nothing in between. Either I'm all in or I'm out. And so I was like, oh, fuck, like this is my thing and this is what I'm known for. This is what everybody wants from me. And I don't want it anymore. And I can't sell it. I just can't. And I remember, Pat, do you remember how much you panicked when I had that conversation with you? Obviously, because he's blocked memory. He doesn't remember panicking. He panicked. There was much panicking. And also we had a brand new newborn at the same time. So, it was a little stressful. But what that really is me. The good thing is, and here's what I would tell you, Satya, is don't run away from it. Don't hide your head in the sand from it. Run towards it. Okay? Because that's what I did. Thank God that I was so sleep deprived that I had lost all my stubbornness and good judgment. And I was like, well, shit, if this is going to go tits up, then I'm going to find out why. And so I picked up and called up all of the clients that had gotten results from us, that had grown to multi-million-dollar businesses using our methodology. And I was like, what the frick do you guys have that all the others, myself included, haven't figured out yet? And I interviewed all of them. I figured out exactly and at first it seemed like they all had different answers. And then when I started to look, I'm good at seeing patterns. That's what makes me such a good coach, is I started to look at, I was like, oh, they all have this in common. They all have this in common. They all have this in common. And that's how Impact with Influence was born. I created it for me. Big, fat, hairy surprise. I'm my own ideal client. Yep, that's why. And when I met David, who was my first ever mindset coach at this depth, I mean, I had worked with other mindset coaches, but they were all doing superficial stuff in comparison. But when I first worked with him and I was like, mind blown, sense of possibility reignited, clarity that I didn't. Smee is drinking from my 2 poodles and a fat cup. That's gross to me. Yeah. Okay. So Reina's like, best nerd party on the internet. You called it. Here we are. All this to say, Satya, is I know we have to wrap. I'm sorry. I'm rambling. But all this to say is that none of it's a mistake. None of it is wrong. We really have, so many of us high achievers have this conceit, because that's what it is. We have this ridiculous fallacy that when things don't work out exactly as they were planned, that we did something wrong. And I think that instead of looking at it that way, my process is to run towards it and be like, okay, what is this opportunity? There may be a way bigger opportunity here that I knew to look for. So Satya, you're telling me 2 things. One, you've transcended some of those old conversations, and you know what? You need permission to let them go. So let them go. Secondly, the thing that ties all of those experiences together is you, which means there is something at the root that makes all of those experiences tie together. And that's the work that we do, is we help you figure out what is that common root. Because then when you start speaking to that root, you get to keep all of the different pieces and speak to them as needed. Do we still teach people PR? We absolutely do. Is it the central focus of our program? No longer. No, it isn't. Because that's not the central focus of my being anymore, but it is still a very useful piece, and it's something I'm damn freaking good at. So does that make sense? So hopefully that answers that question. Pat is very proud of this bumper. I have to say it's very fucking cool, and I'm very excited by it. So yes, if you have any more questions, keep popping them in the comments, and I'm going to come back and answer them in the comments. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. This is so much fun. Thank you for being my community, and I will see you next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern and noon Pacific. Bye.